All right, I gotta make a video about this. I started making a video about this woke stuff a couple weeks ago, but it was like I don't really care. And then this South Park episode came out. I didn't see the episode. I used to be a huge South Park fan. Don't really watch them as much anymore. Not nearly as funny as they used to be, but I just haven't gotten around to it to watch them anymore. I'm just busy with other stuff. But this episode came out and people were talking about it, so I wanted to hear what people were saying about it because it was discussing something that is annoying to me. What's happening in Hollywood and all this stuff, and all my other pop culture videos kind of goes into that stuff. So I was interested in it. And so I went online just to see what people were saying about it, and to just get like a little chuckle from South Park roasting the people that need to be roasted. And then I started I started seeing a lot of the from what I've seen, a lot of the episodes seem to focus on the fact that characters were being changed into black people. And that is a thing that is happening in Hollywood. And this isn't a dig at South Park or Parker or Stone or anything like that. This is just talking about something that's going on in society today. And let me just get to it. The term woke, it's a term I don't use. I've never used. I'm not a person that uses popular terms. But the term was a relevant term, even though I didn't use it. It is a relevant term. The term was initially used because you have a lot of black people who were born in America, black people who were here before slavery started, back black people who were here during slavery, and even black people from the diaspora, from the Caribbeans, from Africa, who moved here and just want to realize the American dream. You have a lot of people within that our big group, our collective black group in this country, who either weren't taught, their parents never taught them, or if their parents did, they never paid attention to it. To the, I mean, the real, it's sort of like white supremacy demonic system that has been used and is being used to cripple black people and to keep us stagnant, from the systematic way that they try to deny us loans and keep us impoverished, to the way that they create crimes just so that they create crimes that they only will pin on majority black population just so that they can pick us up off the street and throw us into prison to use us as slave labor, and to police officers just purposely murdering black people for fun and then lying and saying, "Oh, I was scared," and then white society getting on board and saying, "Oh, we're gonna work to protect the murderer." So many really bad things have happened to black people and are happening now. And you had a lot of black people who, like I said, weren't aware of it or they ignored it, and so it was akin to them being asleep. And so the term woke was black society realizing and finally seeing all of this stuff. It kind of really kicked off with Trayvon Martin's execution and attack, and the attack on Trayvon Martin, and the way that society went out of its way to protect the murderer, a man who murdered a child who was literally just walking home after buying candy. And white society said, well, he's a black child who was walking home with candy in his pockets, so we want the murderer to get away with it because we don't like black people. That really kicked it off. And now you started seeing all this video footage. People started seeing evidence that the justice system is biased against black people. And so black people started to wake up. The ones who were like asleep, who were either weren't paying attention or who just never knew, or who were just ignoring it, were kind of forced now to look and say, oh shit, damn, this shit is worse than we thought. We thought things were getting better, but no, if you actually look at, if you ignore the white propaganda that we call news and you look at the reality stuff that the citizens are filming and posting, you realize how bad it is. And people were waking up to this reality. And so that term woke was kind of started to be used more because it was applicable at this point. People were waking up. Then white homos came, and like white homosexuals always do, and like what people like to do around the world, but specifically white homosexuals that have been doing for a while now. They came along and they were like, you know what, we're going to use this. We're going to use this movement by Black society to try to help themselves from being systematically destroyed, systematically held in place, systematically murdered. We're going to use that to help us get right, so we can make more money and have a better life for ourselves as white homosexuals. So they lumped themselves in. They started this little campaign where they started to lump themselves in. White homosexuals funded groups like Black Lives Matter, which was started by homosexuals, to kind of combine the black struggle with white homosexuals' desire to become more powerful and to become richer. And they kind of melded everything and mushed everything together. So you started to see this black power movement come about. And then it slowly but surely started to shift into blacks and homos. And it's like, well, why are you talking about homosexuals? We're talking about blacks as a collective, as a group. If you're a black heterosexual or a black homosexual, that's irrelevant. We're talking about black people, period. Your sexuality doesn't matter. So why are we talking about homosexuality? And the homosexuals play this little game where they're like, well, don't be homophobic. We need to talk about LGBT. And we're like, well, why do we need to specifically talk about LGBT? We're talking about all blacks. Does it matter what your sexuality is? Didn't you hear me before? And then it slowly started to filter in with LGBT. Well, doesn't just mean black homosexuals. It means all homosexuals, which in reality means white homosexuals, because they're the ones that are funding all of this. They're the ones that control all the outcomes. They're the ones that receive the bulk of the money. Then they went out and put the faces, these black homosexual puppets who were the faces of Black Lives Matter, got in trouble for spending the money. But the white ones who funded the organization and who were really behind it, you don't even know their names or their faces. And that Black Lives Matter slowly trickled over to LGBT and into white homosexuals and into the white transsexual movement. And now you have these white LGBT people who took this movement that was meant to protect black people and keep us from being murdered, and it was moved over to try to make white homosexuals, like I said earlier, more powerful and give them access to more money and more rights. So white homosexuals used black people's struggle and our desire to get some kind of change for ourselves to help their white homosexual community. And you've been seeing this a lot. You started seeing it in Hollywood. White homosexuals would start making movies, and I've made many videos about this in the past, where they would purposely, and again, this is white homosexual producers and writers and directors and studios. These people, and not all of them were homosexual, but they were white. These people would purposely write a story. These are white people. Write a story, insert homosexuality, but make the homosexual characters black people almost all the time, to try to make black synonymous with homosexuality. And they've kept doing that, and they kept doing that, and they kept doing that. So you started to see more and more blacks put into these shows, but it was really to kind of Trojan horse in the homosexual movement, to try to use black people to make homosexuality more palatable to society. Because what we've seen in history is when black people are introduced something, from rock and roll to jazz to rap music, when we introduce something in pop culture, it tends to become popular for whatever reason. Do with that as you will, but it tends to become popular. So they decided, well, we're going to use black people to make our homosexuality more palatable to everyone. And hopefully it catches on and people start to follow it, like they do everything else that black people do. So you started seeing all these black homosexuals in these different things. And then it started to translate over into black people just being put into these different roles to try to make it seem as if, well, we're trying to be diverse, when in reality, they were really just trying to shoehorn in this homosexual agenda, using black people as the vehicle to make it more popular and more acceptable to the masses. And I've noticed that obviously a long time ago. Again, I have many videos about that. But that's why you started seeing a lot of black people in things. Then I want to get that woke thing out of the way, just to let people know, just to put that out there. The term woke was supposed to be used or was created by blacks, not the word, but the term, the meaning of the term that we're using nowadays. That term, the usage of that term, was initiated by black society to kind of to let other black people know, wake up, guys, wake up. This shit happening to us. We have to wake up and pay attention and fight back, or do better for ourselves. Whatever. Just wake up and pay attention. We've been asleep for too long. So now, for some reason, that term woke is being used for homos too. That has nothing to do with homos. If you're a homo, were you ever asleep? Maybe when you were in bed with Billy, you were asleep, but you weren't as a group. You weren't. You were still doing your homo thing. Nobody was targeting you. No one has targeted homosexuals for I would say centuries at this point. You guys are able to live your lives normally. You can either let people know you're homosexual and you won't be bothered, or if you decide you don't want to let people know, you don't have to say anything and nobody will know and no one will bother you. You've never been denied things because homosexuals have huge positions of power in this country and even around the world. So it's not like you can deny them anything. I'm from New York. There's this huge bank. I don't know if that bank is still open anymore, called TD Bank. It started off as it was a bank called Commerce Bank, and then I guess TD bought them or something. TD became this huge bank, TD Bank. One of my best friends worked there. He was a manager there in one of the branches, in several of the branches, and he would let me know, yeah, there are this bank pushes homosexual inclusion in a bank. So homosexuals, it's not like they've been held back or harmed or been denied access to certain things. They have more than enough rights. So homosexuals weren't asleep. They didn't need to wake up. So the term woke wouldn't apply to them. They haven't been harmed. They're not impoverished. They're not being held back systematically. They're not being held back at all. They have these huge platforms in media where they're able to make their own movies and put their own agendas and push that stuff forward. So they don't need the term woke because they've never been in a position where they were being tricked into thinking that their life was okay for them when it really wasn't. That's never been a thing. So for some reason now that term woke is being used for black people, and they're linking homos to it, which is becoming a problem because now, like I said earlier in pop culture stuff, homosexuals have successfully attached themselves to black people. Now, when you hear woke, you think about blacks and homos, and that was initially done because, like I said, if they feel that if they attach themselves to black society and black people allow it, which we unfortunately have done, they hoped that by being attached to us, it would make the homosexual lifestyle more palatable to everyone else. So they slowly attach themselves to us through movies and music and all this media and their propaganda and all this bullshit that they put out there. And so now when you hear the term woke, you're not thinking about black society and the stuff we've gone through. You're thinking about homos, homo rights, men who dress up as women and women who dress up as men and get surgeries and paint beards on and stupid shit like that. And that's a problem. And so now you get things like this, where the South Park comes out and again, they're not wrong. This is happening, but white society and even members of other races are becoming like annoyed, I think, and this is the feeling that I'm getting, annoyed with black people because we keep popping up in their shit for no reason, or not even their shit. We just keep popping up in stuff that we necessarily shouldn't be, like fucking The Witcher. You got black people playing Polish characters. You got black people in these European folk tales and stuff like that. And they're starting to become annoyed with blacks. And that started to make me think because I've made videos about the purge in the past. I made 3 videos about this black purge that I think is coming, and I always tell people that a lot of people within white society, within positions of power in white society, are very deceitful, and they play these chess games with our lives. And I started to think, I wonder if this move to put black people in all these different things. Initially, I was like, I believed that it was just to push the homosexual message, and I still believe that. But I'm wondering if it was like a two-pronged thing. If it was like there was this sort of attempt to make black people, to make white people hate blacks even more. Because now white people are just annoyed with blacks, and we haven't done anything. We don't make these movies and television shows. We're not writing these ourselves into your comic books. That's not we're not doing that. These are white business owners, white writers, directors, producers, executives who are pushing black people into this thing, or they're hiring black people and telling them create something black and put that out there. And I'm starting to wonder, is this stuff being done on purpose to make black people hated? And again, it's going to sound weird. I don't never care about how weird something sounds because people are stupid anyway. People are dumb. They can't put one and two together. So I just say what I'm going to say. But whether it sounds weird or not, I'm starting to wonder if this whole thing, and when I say a black purge, I don't think people sat down and had a discussion about a black purge. I'm not saying that. But I do believe that there are people within white society in positions of power who don't like black people and get it and either like harming black people or putting black people in a position of harm, or who like using black people as a way to distract the masses away from the white men and women who are in positions of power. So white men and women in positions of power will use us as a distraction to kind of, so when white people who are being harmed by the rich whites start to get angry and want to fight back, rich white society will say, "Hey, look, these black people are bad. Go after them. Don't look at us. It's those blacks. They're committing crimes. They're in your movies all of a sudden. They're all in your stuff. These black people are just like a menace. We got to focus on them. Yeah, they're the enemy. Don't ignore me and the opioids that I've pumped into your society." All the tax dollars I've stolen from you so I can enrich myself, all the damage I'm doing to the climate, all the illegal immigrants that I'm bringing in to kind of destabilize your lives and take your jobs, all the harmful products that I know are going to give you cancer, but it makes me rich, so I sell them anyway. All the mass shootings that I allow, which affect you and your children. Kids are getting shot in schools. I don't pay attention to any of that. Look at those niggers in your television shows. Look, there's a black elf on TV. He's an elf and he's black. You got to pay attention to those black people. So I believe that this is kind of another attempt to kind of either distract, to I'm not good with words, but to kind of redirect anger from the white masses within this country onto blacks, just to redirect it so that they're not paying attention, and also to probably stoke up some anger so that if they ever do decide to get rid of us, well, they have all these white people who hate us now. Because I don't understand the reason, and it's annoying to me because I keep going online and I keep hearing white people and Asian people and Hispanic people complaining about blacks being in their things and complaining about blacks in general as a result, and we're not doing this. We're just sitting back living our lives. White people are creating this divide for no reason. Black people didn't. No black people stood up and went in the streets and fought and said, "We want to be in The Witcher. We want black characters in The Witcher." We want to be Disney princesses. We didn't. None of us said that. Now, some black people are happy when it happens, and they go and see it, and they celebrate themselves being shown. But black society hasn't asked for this, petitioned for it, marched for it, fought for it. We don't. We haven't asked for any of this, but for some reason, it keeps being done by white people. These aren't black production studios. Tyler Perry Studios isn't making black versions of fucking Rapunzel or Rumpelstiltskin. They're not doing that. Black people, when we're in position, when we are able to put ourselves in positions, we just make black stuff for black people. If other people want to see it, great. These other things where you're seeing blacks inserted into normally white products, that's white society doing that. Those are white men and women. This South Park episode is going after Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy. They're white. They're the ones doing this. So I get it's it's difficult to kind of make this because it's not. I haven't really seen videos where white people are saying I hate black people, but there's this underlying tone where they're like annoyed with black people when for being in their stuff. We didn't. This isn't our doing. This has nothing to do with black society, everything to do with white society. So it's weird, and the reason I say that now is when you go and you watch like this South Park episode, for example, the clips that I've seen where they're showing characters being replaced, they're all being replaced by blacks or black homos. It's always black people. There's no Asians being in there. I mean, they're not being replaced by, except for the main character, the main cast. Where you had like I think Kenny was Asian and Kyle was Hispanic or something. I don't know. But the majority of the other characters were all black people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like they're looking at this and they're seeing black and they're getting angry because black people are in it. And again, I'm bringing up the South Park episode because the South Park episode shows it. It's not like they're showing all this diversity where there are Indians and Koreans and Dominicans being used to replace white characters. Other than the four main cast, the four boys, Kyle, Kenny, Stan, and Cartman, it's the rest, everyone else is black. All the other students are black. All the people in the town are all black. So when white people see this, they see that they're being replaced by black people. That's what they're seeing. That's what they're focusing on. That's why I'm bringing this up, because it's like now we're starting to look like the negative or the enemy, and we haven't done anything. Again, this is white society orchestrating this. So black people, I want you to kind of pay attention to this and kind of think of it in that way. I don't think this is being done just for shits and giggles. I still think it's being done to help push or to help try to popularize homosexuality. But I also kind of think some people in positions of power are doing this because they want white society to focus on their hatred for us and to ignore what the wealthy white people are doing. So this goes back to my purge thing. Black people, we are being made to look like the enemy. We are being made by white society, by white people in power, to look like negative, like the bad, like the outcast, like the thing that you should go after. And I think it's being done to make it normal for people to hate us, to make it acceptable for people to want to attack us, so that, as usual, we can be used as the scapegoat and the distraction for wealthy white men and women who don't want the white masses to join up with us to go after them. We are that tool or that target that's being used to draw the gaze of white society away from their actual enemy, which is wealthy white men within their own community, and to draw their gaze over to us so that they don't pay attention to the evil that's actually behind the curtain. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Curious to see again what people think about it. But last thing is, woke has nothing to do with trannies and homos. Woke has to do with black men and women all black men and women who have been affected by a lot of the shit that's been done to us and that is being done to us in this country. Stop using that term to describe men who like to get raped anally and for women who like rubbing their vaginas together and creating friction. Has nothing to do with them.